We have one more speaker. He's a former camper, and he has quite a story to tell you. He's a resident of Suffield, Connecticut. He is quite a guy, and he has been a volunteer for quite a few years since he was a camper. Please welcome Mark Zaturka.
As he said, my name is Mark. I'm from Connecticut, and I'm 31 years old. I was telling Felicity I'm a little intimidated after hearing the list of speakers that you guys are accustomed to hearing here, but I'll try to be good. I was a camper at the Hole in the Wall Gang Camp here in Ashford, Connecticut, for several years, and then came back as a volunteer for a number of years afterwards. I was born with a bleeding disorder called hemophilia. So I was born with severe hemophilia A, and I was missing a protein in my blood that's needed to form a clot. So if you think of your body, when you have a bleed, it kind of forms a chain, a clot. And my blood is missing one of the links to that chain. So anytime I have a bleed, I need to get an infusion to replace that missing link. So at least every other day, I have to give myself an infusion, sometimes twice a day, depending on how many bleeds I'm having at the time. And it's intravenously, and I've had to learn to infuse myself since I was 7 years old. It's an extremely painful disease. Most of the bleeding occurs into my joints, so the pressure builds up and the blood eats away at everything inside that joint that makes it work smoothly. So really it's just bone on bone with nerve endings and bone chips, just kind of grinding together. And most of the bleeding for me happens in my elbows and my shoulders, so I can't straighten either of my elbows out more than 90 degrees, and I can barely lift my arms over my head. I've been told by orthopedic surgeons that I'm a great candidate for both left and right elbow replacements and left and right shoulder replacements, but due to my age, they recommended not doing it yet. So it's an extremely painful disease to have, and I've been in pain pretty much every day of my life. And it also, if I hit my head wrong or have a bleed in any of my organs, it can also certainly be a fatal disease as well. One night when I was 12 years old, my parents told me they had something to tell me. And I remember laying there watching The Simpsons on TV. And my dad told me that I was HIV positive. I didn't know, what that was. I saw all my family members crying, even my older brother, who was normally picking on me and beating me up. He was crying, and so we just cried as a family for a while, and I found out that I contracted HIV from one of my infusions for my hemophilia. Prior to 1985, about 93% of severe hemophiliacs contracted HIV. Even manufacturers knowingly at a time where it was distributing this medicine knowing it had HIV in it. And so I was scared to death to tell anybody. I heard about other kids getting thrown out of school and thrown off their baseball teams. Even a family down in Florida who, when the town found out that the little boy with hemophilia had contracted HIV, they firebombed their house and burned it to the ground. So I was pretty scared to death that anybody would find out my status, and I couldn't even tell my grandmother at the time that I was HIV positive. So I felt like a monster and something like nobody else had to go through. And I was also given just a year to live. And at the same time, I was seeing all my other friends who had hemophilia pass away from HIV as well, one at a time. And I remember even going to one of my friend Will's funeral and seeing his family crying and his sister having to run out of the funeral home because she was crying hysterically, and seeing Will there, and all I could do was picture that being me and that being my family. And so not knowing when my time would come, And so I was put in a position to kind of question whether or not it was worth trying to live my life. If I wasn't going to live much longer, what was the point? Then I found out about camp, the Hole in the Wall Gang camp. And I went, and it was pretty obvious that it was like no place that I've ever been to before. The counselors were amazing. They were just so full of excitement, fun, creativity, compassion, and people that I've never met before. And you know, I still, to this day, don't know where they all come from. But the real beauty of the camp were the other campers. One of the first things that I noticed was that I certainly didn't have the worst life in the world. And that showed me that I could start maybe appreciating the things that I do have. And I kind of stopped worrying about all the things that I don't have. And so I went from being this shy, kind of lonely kid with this big, dark secret to laughing all day and playing with anybody and everybody that wanted to play, to staying up all night in my cabin with my cabin mates, cracking jokes, sharing stories, making farting noises till we woke up the counselors, sharing tips on how to take that gross tasting medicine. So my life really just transformed, and I went from being a misfit to having 100% guaranteed support from every single person around me. So it was quite a change in my life, just over a matter of a few days. And so before going to camp, I was deciding whether or not I wanted to live, whether or not I should just give up. And the Hole in the Wall made me want to live every second, every breath that I was lucky enough to be given. It was at camp where I found myself, and not only found myself, but I found who I wanted to be. And I've kept being that person ever since. It was no longer poor me, I have this awful disease or diseases. It was now, wouldn't it be awesome if I could go on and do great things despite my diseases? And everything that happens at camp and all the friends that you meet at camp, they don't end at the end of the session. They're with you for the rest of your life. And I can say with great confidence that I am the person I am today because of camp. Camp literally stays with me forever, and it changed my life. And I think some of the stories you heard earlier, that's true all over the world for all the campers that go to all the camps, probably even more so in a lot of cases. Camp gave me the strength and the courage to want to live my life. It gave me the strength and the courage to graduate high school and to go to college, to live in New York City and Hollywood interning for MTV. Gave me the strength and the courage to be the first in my family to graduate college. I backpacked Europe for 2 months. I started a career helping other families with bleeding disorders. I was on the board for 4 different nonprofits. I now live in a beautiful home with a beautiful wife that actually agreed to marry me, and now is actually agreeing to start a family with me. And I just wanted to thank camp and the association and everybody here, just for showing your support. Because I not only have the life that I wanted to live, but it was camp that showed me the way. And so I want to keep living life the best I can, and continue being the best person that I can because of camp. So thank you all so much for your support.